Hello, this is Lisa with Quilting Block of the Month Facebook group, and our first block for May is called Grandmother's Cross. You're simply going to need 2 7/8 inch squares for these four here, the four corners, and then the four here. So you'll have 3 different colors. You'll need 4 sets of each color, like I've got here. I'm going to do mine in a little different color. And you're also going to need 1 odd color to go in the center of the cross. So I'm going to change mine up a little bit from that color scheme there. So I've got 4 yellows, I got 4 purples, I got 4 teals, and then I've got a pink for the center of the cross. Then, okay, so for part of our block, we're going to use a template. This just makes it easier to cut out these odd shaped pieces here versus trying to measure how far this direction, here, and then doing your diagonal. What we are creating is this little section piece right here. So you've got your 2 pieces here and then the center one. And so we would be using this template to do that. You've got your piece 1, your piece 3, and then your piece 2. And so you just need to go in here and you're just going to want to trim these up. The dotted line is the part that you do not want to cut off. The seam allowance is going to be your solid line. So you can either just go in with a pair of scissors, you can just use, a ruler to make it across. You don't even have to make it exact. You can just kind of, cut them around just so you've got your pieces. And then when you lay it on your paper, actually cut there. Or you can go ahead and just draw all these lines, because they are all straight lines. Just use your ruler and cut all your pieces apart. Then once you have all your pieces cut apart, you're going to want to lay them on your fabric. Now, piece 1 and piece 3 are very similar in pieces. You just have your left and your right pieces so that your triangle goes in between them. And so I've gone ahead here and I've got them cut. So I got piece 1, piece 2, and piece 3. These are going to put together the top or the outside edges on all the block. These points on all of them here. So I'm using teal for these and I'm using the purple still for here. And so you just cut them out. Make sure that you're cutting out 4 sets of each. Now, on pieces 1 and 3, it does make a difference. You do need to make sure when you're laying your fabric that your fabric are all the same direction. All right sides together. So when you're cutting it, if you're doing it in multiples, they're all the same size and shape. And the same thing with the other side. Piece 3. Make sure that you lay all your pieces the same direction. Now, they need to be the same as piece 1. So if you cut these all face up, right side up, then you need to do all of these right side up. That way you've got 2 sets. So that you have one there, one there. Purple really doesn't matter because they're a triangle. And that will be put together like that. Okay, after you've cut all your pieces out, the first section that we're going to do is using the pieces you cut from the template. Piece 1, piece 2, piece 3. You'll lay them out, making sure that your triangle's in the right orientation here. Make sure that you don't have it this way, because then your block's going to get crooked. It's real important to make sure that even sides are going down, the shorter end is at the bottom. So the first thing you're going to do is you're going to take this piece here, and you're just going to fold it over, piece 2 onto piece 1, and align those up. And then you're going to sew a 1/4 inch seam from the top to the bottom. And then you're going to press it open. So I've got this one here. I've got my 1/4 inch seam on it, and I've pressed it. Now you are going to want to press towards piece 1. That reduces your bulk here in the center. So you want to, again, press it towards piece 1. Now lay your piece back down here. And now you're going to take this piece, piece 3, you're going to roll it up onto there, line it up, and you're going to sew again a 1/4 inch seam from the top to the bottom and press open again towards the darker color. see we've got this one here, and I pressed it out. So both of your seams are being pressed towards pieces 1 and 3. This just reduces that bulk here in the center, because that would be a lot of layers. That'd be 2, 4, 6 layers, and here we've only got 3. So you just lay it open like this. Now, the next step you need to do is you will create 4 of these, 1 for each of the 4 sides. You're going to need to go ahead and get your ruler out, and you're going to want to square these up to 2 7/8 tall by 7 3/4 inch long. This is important so that everything falls together. Real important, when you are trimming, make sure that you don't trim more than 1/4 inch off of the peak of your triangle. And the reason for this is that's your seam allowance. So if you trim it off, so you can just simply, if you're lining up your 2 7/8 line there, and you look up here, make sure you've got your 1/4 inch. Then you can trim. If you don't have a 1/4 inch, trim it off from the bottom. And so I'm just going to line it up here. My piece is a little crooked. Oops. Line it up. And then we're just going to simply use the rotary cutter and cut it to make sure that our width is right. Mine's a little bit crooked. Cut it. And then I just had to cut off a little bit less off the top just so that I could trim a little bit at the bottom. As you can see, it's kind of crooked. Let's trim it there. But as you can see, I still have 1/4 inch at the top. Then you want to make sure that it is 7 3/4 inches long, and mine equals up to 7 3/4. If you're needing to trim off, make sure you trim off evenly from both sides. If you don't trim off evenly from both sides, then your block will be offset, because you're going to have the next row is going to have your purple here, and if you trim too much one way, you may end up with your triangle off-centered. So again, trim from both sides. You can trim from both sides here. Just make sure not to trim more than 1/4 inch off of it, leaving 1/4 inch here. Okay, so now we're going to assemble the block. You've got the 4 pieces that you just created using the templates, and then you've got 3 sets of 4 and a single one of the 2 7/8 inch by 2 7/8 inch squares. So the first thing we're going to do is our pink is going to, in mine, it's going to be the center. And then this is part of my cross. So as you can see, it kind of lines up here. Put one at the bottom here. Scoot up. And then here. And here. And then I've got the yellow here. And the teal there. And so that's the layout of how our blocks are going to go. So the first step would be to sew this 9 patch in the middle. Let's assemble it. Now I've got my 9 patch started. I've got 3 rows sewn together. Now you need to press the seams, but we need to go ahead and take into account the rows above it and below it. And so since our triangles here are pushed outward, we're going to want to press these inward, outward, inward, so because those are out. That way when we assemble it, you'll be able to nest your seams together and reduce the bulk. Okay, after you've sewn your 3 rows of this 9 patch together, you're going to need to press. And again, besides looking at the tops and the bottom, you're also going to need to look at the sides to make sure. So in this case, since they were pressed outward, these do need to go inward. So that when you block them up, they'll nest nice and smooth together. So now what we're going to do is we are going to sew these in 3 rows. We're going to sew the top row together, the bottom row together, and then the center here together. And then we'll assemble the 3 rows together. Okay, after you've got your 3 separate rows sewn together, lay it out to make sure that you still have the correct pattern. That you've got your crisscross in the middle, that you don't have, you know, one of your sides turned upside down, or even one of these 2 pieces turned upside down. So just make sure you've got them correct, and then you're just going to simply fold these over. After you've pressed them, nest those seams, fold this one up, So I'll do a 1/4 inch seam allowance on across the top and across this way, and I'll press them open, and then we've got it all done. Okay, once you've got your 3 rows sewn together, you've got your block. Just make sure you press your seams nice and neat. You can press them open like I did. You can press them inward, outward, whichever way you want. Just make sure you press it nice and neat to finish off the block. So here are our 2 of the Grandma's Crosses, our first block for May, quilting block of the month Facebook group. Make sure that you join our group if you haven't already. Take pictures and post them up there so we can all enjoy your blocks.